Andres Williams.
Rob Hoegee. He's the one with the good voice.
Just
So we got the villain and the one who writes for
That's right, exactly.
the one with the brain.
Yeah, well,
Maybe just to start, what is the art of writing a villain on the Thunderbirds? What is the kind of what is the tonality of a Thunderbirds bad guy that's maybe distinct to the Thunderbirds world?
well, there is sort of a kind of a template for a TV bad guy, and it is always sort of a writer's desire to try to break away from that and make someone that's interesting and original. And the thing about Thunderbirds is it is such sort of a kind of a campy, over-the-top show, and by its very nature, that's going to translate to the villain as well. So we figured that with Thunderbirds we could either sort of try to run away from it or embrace it, and we decided to embrace it. So he's a very sort of big, larger-than-life, campy villain with a lot of evil laughter and just sort of little hand-wringing and coming up with nefarious schemes, and we've got a great actor to have fun with that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's for me, it's the writing makes it. It just helps so much with the writing because every word just drips with villainy. I mean, clearly this is no accident, but every word, every line is like, yes, can't wait to say this.
But he is very much a cartoon villain. I mean, we're not trying to hide that fact. And even in the original show, I mean, the Hood would always end in some sort of fiery disaster. I'll get you next time, International Rescue. Oh, you should say that.
Yeah, well, always uses his plan B, which, does he have a plan A? He seems to go out there with plan B.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what's your typical reaction when you first get a script and you see what...
Apart from going to look at how many lines, reading it straight off. In fact, first of all, I look at the lines, then I go back and I sort of see where they all are, but to just work out where it sort of, how it fits in the story, but it's very exciting when because we kind of block out some sort of possible recording dates, and sometimes I'm sort of scrubbed because I'm not in those episodes, but other times when I'm in them and the script comes, it's like, yes, that's really very exciting.
Now, I've seen the first season. I loved it.
Thank you.
I also grew up with the original.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, the reruns. I mean,
Same with me. Yeah.
So, if I may ask, what are some of the challenges in catering to today's audience? In terms of technical and the writing storyline. I mean, how do you up the ante so that they can appeal to today's generation?
Well, there's a lot of challenges with making an animated show today. First of all, kids are far more sophisticated than they've ever been, and so their tolerance for mediocre shows is very low. So if they're not interested, boom, they're gone. So you really have to engage them, and it's even if you were to ask that question 5 years ago, it would have been fast, action, lots of stuff, lots of eye candy, and not even that works today. You really have to engage them on the storytelling level, which is exciting for me as a writer. So there is becoming this trend now for serialized storytelling, which is why Amazon is such a great partner for us, because it sort of lends itself very well to that sort of binge-watching experience. So as our series progresses, we're going to start seeing more sort of elements that carry through that are going to really make you want to watch the next one. So that really does help us sort of keep the audience engaged. The original show was 45 minutes long. Ours is only 22. Attention spans are far less today than they used to be, and so we really can't get away with that sort of plotting story, that sort of plotting plot lines that the original show did. So it is a little bit quicker, a little more snappy. We get to it a lot faster, and in a lot of ways, we are still kind of banking on that exciting visual style as well.
Thank you, sir.
Does TV have a bell? Let's call it a bell curve in the writing, and how much do you think streaming has changed that across the board, in the sense that you now have an expectation that your audience may well consume your program as a 10-hour film?
Well, as a writer, it's terrific because we've always wanted to tell bigger, broader storylines, and in kids programming specifically, the mandate has always been standalone. Because in the broadcast model, they just want to be able to throw the episodes on in any order they want. Oh, this one rated a little higher than that one. We'll repeat this one more often. And so you actually have to be a lot more conscious of the series as a whole, or the season as a whole, and you're orchestrating series arcs. So we're actually in a lot of ways playing catch up to that, even with Thunderbirds. So as we begin in season 1 and partially in season 2, they are in a sense more standalone, but in our second season, which is going to be premiering on Amazon this fall, we are starting to see more plot threads that sort of tie the episodes together.
Now, when you're writing the episodes, do you find it difficult, like, because you have adults that are watching it for nostalgia's sake and kids that are watching it, like, how do you balance that larger audience when you're writing?
It's surprisingly easy because, I'm a grown-up, and so I'm writing it to be something that I would enjoy watching. And then you sort of have to look at it through the kid filter and make sure, okay, are we dealing with concepts here that they may not get, or are the plot twists a little too confusing? Are there ways we can streamline? But so in general, I mean, you sort of write to your own taste and not dumb it down for the kids, but sort of make it approachable for them. And generally it works out pretty well.
Can you both talk about your past or history with Thunderbirds on GM? Do you have action figures? Did you collect some? Or what do you
Not from the sort of the original, but obviously, in the advent of this, I've got a 5-year-old kid, so he has everything. Even if his mother said no, he would have it. So he's got Tracy Island, and he's. But there's a few new toys out there which he's yet to get. But yeah,
which one would you like to own that you haven't yet?
Well, I'd like to see some of the Hood's goods, but for some reason we have 2 Hoods. I don't know, but the legs are surprisingly easy to pull off. So they've got Scott's legs on. This isn't me doing this, but yeah, I don't know if any of the Hood's ships are going to be built, but they're pretty spectacular in their own right. So,
yeah, unfortunately, the toys are only available right now in the broadcast territories, so they're not out in the States yet, which hopefully they will be soon.
I hope so.
So I'm having to get them from my own kids. Whenever I'm in New Zealand, where we do most of our production, I'll go to the toy store and get some there, or if I'm in the UK, I'll get some there. So I've sort of had to smuggle them in. It's I've also over the last couple of years since I've been involved with the show, sort of started collecting a little bit of the sort of things from the original series as well, which are increasingly harder to find, especially the true vintage ones, because the collectors have bottled those up. But they've done a lot of cool reproductions from the original show that you can still buy today, which I've always gotten a lot of fun.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And when you come to do the Hood voice, do you kind of, how much did the original voice inform what you do, and how much of it it lives in the life of the new series?
I don't think, to be honest, any of the original voice, because I think, if I'm right, that he was, I'm not sure where he was from, but he certainly wasn't the UK, which is where the accent is today. But it was a mix of various villains, I think, and then brought in, in the casting process. It was channeling, a few that they sort of wanted to, and then just mixing it up and coming out of my sort of filter and seeing what happened. And they liked it, and sort of just carrying with that. From time to time, I have to sort of say, just remind myself, how do I go again? Because it isn't my natural voice. But I don't know. I think it kind of it's sort of in its own place now, and I think hopefully it works.
If we look at this as like Bond for children in a way. Do you feel like the Hood is cut in the cloth of a classic Bond villain?
I think it's hard to sort of not think in those sort of terms, because he's I suppose it's basically the things he wants is pretty much like, I think there's a line in there, it's straight out of a bad movie, not a Bond movie necessarily, but some of his demands. So I think it's in some of the Bond movies, they tend to fail in the end, don't they? So, like we're talking about Plan Bs, there's always a Plan B for the hit, and it always seems to be easy. When will that change?
Have you seen, like, this already aired in the UK and now the US is getting it. Have you seen any difference in the audience's reactions to the show?
It seems to be universally popular. I mean, this show sort of really kind of hits a sweet spot, and it's so many animated shows today are targeted for a very specific demographic, and even if you sort of look at the marketing material for ours, it'll say, boy, 6 to 11, but I think ours really does transcend that in so many ways. Little kids have something that they can enjoy from it. Bigger kids within our target demographics of the toy buying age have something they get it, and older kids like it, grown-ups like it, so I think that here in the United States, we don't have as much of a history with the property as even say UK or New Zealand or Japan, where some of the other places right now where it's already aired. So you sort of are having it with fresh eyes who have no experience with it at all, and they're sort of accepting it for what it is. Just like kids in the UK have an understanding of what Thunderbirds is, but still can enjoy our version.
What can we expect from the new season? I haven't seen it yet. I mean, are you willing to take the characters to certain places that might be deemed too dark for some audiences, or anything like that? Do you dare?
Well, this is a very sort of bright, light show. I mean, there really isn't much of an appetite to take things too dark.
Okay.
But we are dealing. In season 1, we sort of introduced the characters. We sort of introduced sort of the family unit, and also Kayo is sort of the new person that's sort of within the family, revealing some dark secrets about her past and her own family, and that in season 2, that's really going to start to sort of play up. And become a much bigger sort of factor, and to the point where it actually is going to cause some issues for international rescue itself, and because of that, they come close to losing everything.
But you set the boundaries as far as the tone goes, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Kayo obviously is the Tintin type,
yes,
and she's the character that kind of from the original to this is the most different character. Did you encounter sort of a faction of Tintin loyalists who felt that was the biggest change?
I found none.
Yeah.
And but truth be told, I don't really kind of lurk around on the fan sites very much. I sort of just I try to take the good with the bad, but I sort of just like to kind of put my blinders on as far as the diehard fans' reaction goes. That was probably the biggest change character-wise, and from my perspective, the one that needed the most change. The original character served a purpose, and I didn't feel it was a very useful one. Part of our big decision coming into redeveloping this show is that every character needs to have a purpose, and there were a lot of characters in the show. The 5 Tracy brothers, we have Kayo, we have Grandma Tracy, we have Brains, we have Lady Penelope Parker, we have the Hood. So, I mean, already our cast is huge. So we needed to figure out, is this character, serving a useful purpose within the greater dynamic, within the storytelling kind of opportunities, and for us, I felt that Tintin as a character seemed to be a little dated. We needed a stronger female voice in the show, and we found that certainly with Penelope, but I felt that Tintin, now Kayo, was another great opportunity to essentially have a sister in the group, which I thought was sort of needed.
Do you feel the dynamic of those 5 boys was too masculine?
Well, not necessarily, but it's sort of a thing where they're in a parallel universe. It may have been, can we make one of them a sister? Why not? But in our universe, the sort of the dynamic of the Tracy family is pretty sacred, and that's just not something that we really could get away with. But so the next best thing, I think, was to find an existing character that could work themselves into the group in a meaningful way, and not just be sort of an adjunct character, but every bit as equal as the 5 brothers.
Battlestar Galactica made Starbuck a villain.
Oh, that was
how realistically did you imagine you could have had changed one of the Tracy boys to a Tracy girl?
I brought it up. I made the pitch.
The conversations
the conversations did take place, and that was sort of one of the things. And it was not something that was just dismissed out of hand. Weighing the property as the franchise as a whole, trying to tie this back into the classic Thunderbirds, and finding a way that we can sort of make a balance between what was already there and what we're sort of reimagining, and opportunities for us to kind of make our own show as well. So those were all sort of factors that came to play.